Roll call.
Mr. Easton, would you?
I can do that. Mr. Jacoby,
Present.
Mr. Jenks,
Here.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Mr. Rieger,
Here.
Mr. Glander, Mr. Walters is absent, and Mr. Martin.
Guess our one visitor, well, you have your visitor as well. Okay, so two visitors present. And I assume you need to sign in or not.
We already signed in.
All right. So I'd like to welcome these visitors then. Mark and I had talked about some of the issues coming up, and because he's been involved, so invited him to come to the meeting so that we could discuss some of that. So we have the minutes prepared, the draft from the April 5th meeting. And just wanted to see if there are any comments on those.
No comments. I move let's accept the minutes.
I hear a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's are approved. Okay, second, so the changes that we've talked about concerning the well field and the pool fence, among some other changes to the text that we had worked on. We discovered that they had not been changed in the actual document on the website. Mark, feel free to.
Nor on the written zoning resolution that you have.
So those changes had never been made, even though they've been approved by the trustees. And they've also not been recorded at the county. Okay, so those things still need to be done. And so we were able to recover one copy, right? So
I tried to get a hold of Shauna to see if, I don't know, because all the copies here are black and white. We weren't sure if Shauna had a color copy or in the police department. That would make it, when you're looking through those changes, make it a whole lot easier if you saw all the red lines
Yeah.
versus
absolutely,
grayish light. So I'll try to talk.
yeah.
See if you can get that. So did you ever talk to the reporter's office? Angie?
I only talked to them and she basically said, yeah, you have to send in the changes, and so it's in our hands, Heather's who I was turned over to there.
So just to, again, so that once the trustees approved those changes, which they did back on last year, I think July of 2020. Once they approve those changes, then it's set to go as far as those changes can be incorporated in the hard copy. Those changes could be incorporated in the copy that's online. And they need to be brought down to the recorder's office, but they don't have to be brought down to the recorder's office before they actually put it in the copy. Haley never did any of it. So that's the problem. You guys are catching up on years' work, basically.
Yeah, the hard part's been done, but we need, I think, unfortunately, my wife's going to get the assignment.
Yeah, and
I think the computer changed.
I think I looked for clarification last time. I'm not sure what was said. I didn't see it in the notes, but didn't we, I think I was wondering, was there no copy submitted to the trustees then? Because that had to become.
yeah, no,
Document in paper form, right?
all right, we have, that's part of the stuff. Try to copy. It's actually the meeting that they were approved. So it's the resolution that was approved by the trustees to accept the changes to the zoning.
So we do have that.
There's a red line copy
Right, so we do
with,
have that.
with the new language and the strikeouts for the old language.
So I didn't understand the copy about this being a black and white copy or not having access to the red.
Well,
um,
yeah, I mean, the person that's gonna do this, which may be Danny, it's gonna be much easier for them to look at the changes because they would be in red versus,
They will have that copy. I mean.
well, if we can get it, yeah.
Because that seems like that would be available somewhere with one of the.
Yeah, it's available. It's just a matter of finding a copier that copies in color today. And I'm not, Mark and I talked about this too. I'm not sure if Sean is at least copied. Yeah, it's in color.
Okay, I didn't understand. I thought you were saying what was copied was in black and white. So you're saying.
No,
Yeah,
no,
this copy
the original copy has,
copy that.
yeah, it has all the red line and everything. So that,
Yeah.
so that way that person that's doing the updates can look at the red line and figure, okay, this has to go here. This has to be. The biggest section is going to be the definitions, because that entire section has to be redone because, you know, you add different definitions, so it's going to push everything. So that's going to be the. I did.
So that one does exist. That one also did, because I did look back and I think I found one, I don't know how current it was, but it was one definitions that did have red highlights and what was changed. So if you don't have that, I think I may have. Hopefully
Yeah.
the current one. We have some of these ones.
Yeah,
that have-
you do.
Would you like me to send the red line remind,
I think we all received it, didn't we?
just in case, you know, Danny wants to work off of a digital
Yeah.
copy, if you can do
Okay.
that too.
You mean the one you just sent? Like a month, like a.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all received it.
32-page
Yeah.
PDF document.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was PDF. And then, you found it in Word as well, or no?
No, I
Just in PDF.
it's probably on Haley's computer, which is, but
Okay.
so yeah, again, and we did, you know, she found a way to take the resolution and be correctable. So this Danny's going to have to work with that too.
Yeah.
And we're also, her and I talked about the pool rules in the resolution. The old rules are like two paragraphs. The new rules are like pages. And I'm seeing how that happened.
It was as though it looked like somebody had cut and pasted something from another township or something.
I think so.
Um,
Sounds familiar.
So anyway, just
Yeah,
won't affect you guys, but maybe something you may want, if you're going to make some changes this year, you may want to go back to a simpler.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, the thing too, I don't know whether, are you saying it's going to be done by Danny? This is going,
Well,
or maybe,
I talked about it.
because there is scanning software that will pick that up. You don't have to retype the whole document. A lot of copiers have scanning software where you can it'll just go in and then maybe have some formatting issues. So there'd be no reason to type that whole document over again.
That's the question. We want to take the PDF to Word. That's the issue that you're. Yes. Are you wanting to take the PDF to Word? Is that the issue? So this doesn't retype it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the corrected text next to it, so we need to work that into a single font and then make it a finished resolution. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Well, I think what you're saying, because I've worked with a lot of these before, that what are our most common people that we use, that the PDF reader, it's just the reader. You can't go in and edit it. So that's probably what you're talking about.
Well, yeah,
But you do
sure.
have
I have a Pro, so I can flip anything around.
Originally, you can
You
do
do
that.
have that.
So you can save them to Word documents from there.
Yeah.
Convert it back to Word and whatever. Do it. It's like-
Acrobat Pro? Oh, great. Okay. Keep that in mind.
Hope that's what I do with it.
The other thing that Kurt and I talked about, as far as updating the zoning map itself, that's what we did with the districts. Went back in the zoning office and found 3 zoning changes since 2015, maybe. Something that there was the Brummet case. Remember the guy that had the private investigator? I want to put that on Eby Road. That was changed. There was a Skaggs case on 725 next to one of the junkyards.
Oh, yeah, out in the east.
Yeah, that was back in 2019. And then there was a partial change on Jacobs was back in 2017. I think he was on. Just half of the property was agricultural and half was business, and they changed all the business. I don't know. I obviously I wasn't back that far, but so is that all you guys can think of? It's all I could find in the office, those three changes. And the gravel pit, but that didn't go through, so that's not a change. But Kurt's got all the information. So that would probably,
Did you pick up the one with the security company?
yeah, that was it.
That's been since I got here.
Right, yeah, so. It's really just a lot of catching up that wasn't done with the previous. So.
And same thing there, I believe, because we did have, except for these last 2 months, except we're missing the minutes, but we did have minutes for all those meetings approved at some point. So just by looking at the minutes, the approved minutes of those meetings, we would see anything that was an actual change. Because even this is, it's quite thorough that you did last time. And sometimes in the past, yeah, you did a great job. But we're looking, in some of these old ones, what we're all looking for is just any action that was taken. So that would be very clear to, easy to point out on these, going back to when we have 4 meetings a year, well, unless we have an actual.
I need previous minutes.
Yeah.
See, those are the 3 that I could find because those files were all big. So that may be because the maps are pretty easy to just have to tell them to change the map and they'll provide them.
Yeah, so as part of this, figuring out what goes on at the county and other things, so, and how the process goes with the county recorder, somehow I found out about this map department that's there. And the map department is, their main function is to make sure they collect all the tax money. And the guy that runs this map department, he says, you'd be surprised at the length of expense and resources that the county will go to collect every tax dollar. So anyway, they're not really the authority on maps, in other words, all the different townships and cities and things like that. They just take what we give them and they record it. So there's really no, yeah, it's really kind of amazing that there's nobody that's actually checking all this stuff. So, I guess what it had kind of occurred to me is that we're somewhat responsible for the map as well in the zoning. The one that's, well,
In the hallway.
yeah, in the hallway there. Yeah, we should probably consider that, in addition to the zoning resolution, review that once in a while too, because it'll get out of date, and the changes that we approve may not get recorded on that map, and so.
There's really not too many changes. So
We had a slew of them back, I don't know how many years ago, that's when I'm starting to think back when you're seeing the history. On the EV Road, when all those small lots they were mixed in with all kinds of like agricultural and
Right.
industrial and residential, and there were a lot of changes.
the map we have now, I think, is 2015.
Yes.
Okay, I think that was part of that.
Yeah, so it's pretty current, but yeah.
Mark, there was also that mess down in Sunbury where all the right of ways and this and that, we changed zoning down there too. You were asking me if there was anything else. Yeah, there was a huge mess down there in Sunbury.
Wasn't that due to
There was right of ways, there used to be,
the old 1.3?
yeah, there used to be streets or something. And so there were changes made there as well.
I think that was after 2015.
Yeah, that was just maybe.
Where they're building.
It hasn't been.
Yeah, they're building a couple houses there right now. That's only been a couple years ago. Do you remember? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
The person that came in to do that never ended up building there, but yeah.
Right.
They ended up selling them after we cleaned it up. You know, there
That's
was
right.
all this whole business. They
That's right.
wanted to change it to 2 lots because they just had to have their daughter that
Right.
lived next to them and all this other stuff. But then they ended up, we cleaned it up because it was, some of it was business. I don't know. It was a mess. And then, so that's one more that I just popped in my head.
Yeah, good memory
Anyway,
there. And as you point out, there's new activity there.
yeah, and not that that's part of this conversation, but they're moving at a double wide there, and I didn't think that was
I
allowed.
had
in
the same
the
question, and I was
township.
wondering if because of this gap we're having with Haley being gone, whether things were happening that weren't following the usual procedure for
Yeah,
building permits and all. I
Yes.
noticed that too and wondered what was going on
I
there.
was wondering if, how they got a permit.
That was considered a modular home.
What's,
Only 2 pieces. They do have a foundation there.
yeah,
It's 27 feet wide. Most double wides are like 20. So that was a question that was brought up actually by our road super. When they applied for it, they said it was going to be a modular. So that may be something. So and that's,
That was like what last permit that Haley,
yeah, that's one of the last
Yeah.
permits. But
Yeah.
again, the owner said that it's going to be a modular home, so it's kind of hard to. I think that's one of the things you may want to, and that's kind of on the list of possible changes in the zoning resolution.
it was allowed before if the structure sat on a permanent foundation, a poured or block foundation. So is this gonna have
Well,
that?
it is a poured foundation. It's all concrete underneath.
I'm talking block up to the actual building to where it's gonna,
It's on blocks, but supposedly we looked it up and cement block is a form of foundation.
but it's supposed to be
Solid
completely walled off
Yeah, I don't-
exterior. That's what it was before.
Yeah.
And then that's it'd be a modular home if it's sitting on a complete foundation. Right now, it's sitting on little block pillars, and that's not part of the way it's supposed to be.
Well, all we can do is that this is what was, when they made the application.
So this is something that probably fell through the cracks now.
Could have been. I mean, we can only go with what the person is.
Okay.
But again, and I think that's something that, you may want to address because modular homes, mobile homes, there really isn't anything in the resolution that says you cannot have a mobile home in an agricultural district or residential. It may, if you put the pieces together, if you go to the definition of modular home, mobile home, and dwelling, it says that a mobile home is not considered a dwelling. You have to put those 3 pieces together because there's nothing in there that says that there cannot be a mobile home. I mean, it is a prohibited, but it just isn't written very well. I mean, it's,
We also have square foot requirements.
that's a residential district, so it's probably fine. It's not agricultural. So they have much smaller.
I don't remember if that was in residential or agriculture where we had you remember, Fred? Where we had the square footage requirements. Most of you guys were on the,
Well, it would be in the resolution. You just have to look it up.
Okay.
It's not in there.
Designated residential district.
Just to update the zoning resolution, this is just, I basically said, need to update Article 2, which is all the definitions. Update Article 26, Section 2603, which is determination about applicability. That's for the welfare. Update Article 26, Section 2606, prohibit use, and that's well field. Update Article 26, add Section 2610. Update Article 38, Section 3801D, that's the pool fence. And update Articles 38, Section 3801D, which is that, remember when you added the hot tubs and the spa? That's not in there yet, so all those have to. I can make copies of it. This is the notes from Kurt's. Maybe afterward, Mark, we can mix the copies.
I can,
feed.
Yeah.
Don't use the feeder. You don't eat the document.
So is there anything else on updating everything? So this is some possible additions to the zoning resolution. So we talked about solar panels a lot. We talked about the big commercial solar panels farms, but we really didn't talk about solar panels on residential lots or on roofs and stuff.
You want to move into new business?
Yeah.
Or- Okay,
Sorry, Kurt.
that's okay.
I'm trying to take it over. So we had in the last 2 weeks, people inquiring about solar panels. One was a lady on 10165 EB. Hello, we are interested in doing a solar panel installation for residents. Can you please let me know what might be needed for zoning permit for the township? I think that was on their roof. So again, there's nothing in the zoning resolution that has anything to do with solar panels. So that's a problem because again, people have been putting them up for a while. And the other case was a little bit more complicated. My name is Mike Frisbee. I live at 13484 Oxford. I want to install solar panels on my property. We need to know what permits are needed. I want to use a pole mounted array approximately 75 feet from Oxford Road and 75 feet west of my house. This is the best place in the property for optimal sunlight and to keep it off my leach bin. I have planted 2 rows of white pine trees that should block the view from Oxford Road within the next couple of years. They are each 10 feet now. Please advise on the next step. Interesting one about this is basically solar panels, that are ground-based were treated as accessory structures. Really nothing in there, but that's kind of what Haley made them. So accessory structures have to be in the backyard. Kurt and I talked about this. Sometimes the backyard is not the ideal place to place solar panels because you're not going to get the area. This was a little interesting. I made a copy of this. It's a little harder to see. So this is his property. Here's Oxford Road here. Same thing. This is the property. Here's Oxford Road. So that's his frontage on Oxford. Here's his property. That's and the blue dot is where his house.
I sent it to you, you know that,
You did.
because he called me about it. He's my neighbor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's right on the road. The same thing. There's a property. Okay. I don't have one, but
I can, if you need another one,
Northeast
Mark,
here.
you need another one, I can look at that. North. Someone else need this?
Marvin. North would be, the Oxford Road would be north of this
property.
property.
So in this case, it looks like it's going to be in his side yard, which, and Marvin, you may know about this. His house is kind of grown up all around the house. The only place that's kind of cleared up is where he's going to put the solar panels. So in this case, it worked out fine that it wasn't in the backyard because again, there's nothing, you really can't control something if you don't have something in the zoning resolution. That's the problem. Right now, we have nothing.
Where's the house on this map?
The little blue dot.
Okay.
That's the house.
So it is basically, again, it would be west of this house. Only so much, I don't know exactly where they're going to go, but it could be more of a side yard than a backyard.
Yeah, so in all this property, there's nothing behind the house where you could locate panels.
It's really overgrown, isn't it?
He's had pine trees there white pines when he first moved out there. And, so, I mean, it's like, it is a forest of white pine.
It is a kind of a mess, yeah.
And then they don't really believe in grass per se, that kind of stuff. So their yard is just whatever comes up and they sort of mow it. I mean, it's a beautiful place. They're just kind of free spirits. We've known them forever. Anyway,
But again, I guess it just brings up the point that, if we need to put something in. And what I had pulled up was solar panels from Liberty Township. You guys have seen this all before.
Mhm.
So the Liberty Township, what they say is freestanding solar panels shall be limited to a maximum height of 16 feet and shall be located in the rear yard. Such freestanding solar panels shall count toward the maximum number of accessory uses permitted on the property and shall require a zoning certificate. Right now, we're kind of following that, saying it has to be in the backyard. They do need a zoning certificate. The accessory structure is like $50 for the zoning certificate. Roof mounted solar panels in the front side of the roof facing the street should be flush mounted to the roof. Roof mounted solar panels that do not face the street shall not exceed 12 inches in height from the roof plane and may not project beyond the edge of the roof. Roof mounted solar panels shall not quite count for the maximum number of accessory uses permitted on the property and shall require a zoning certificate. So right now, they require a zoning certificate for a roof mount. Really, in our case, the lady that on EV Road is going to do roof mount really isn't, I mean, they're not really altering. They're just adding to their roof. They're not altering the roof. They're not maybe building it. So,
Yeah.
So that may be.
Well, and part of the concern or question is, you know, should we permit solar panels to be in front yards anywhere in a person's lot? You know, does the community have a different interest in that, you know, from an aesthetic viewpoint, or, you know, do you want to be next to a neighbor who has got nothing but solar panels and, you know, no grass or bushes, you know, that's his sole.
That's the question. Do you want to, I mean, you could, if you want to follow that, you could make it just the backyard. Or you could say side or backyard. You could be more flexible again, because solar panels aren't like a barn. You put the barn there, it doesn't make any difference. Solar panels, you put the panels where they're not going to reach the maximum sunlight. Good, so these are all, there's a lot. I think the goal, like Kurt, is to get everything up to date, and that may be something you may want to see. Right now, there's really nothing in there. Kristen's kind of, let's see, as an accessory structure. Again, with Mr. Frisbee, kind of his side yard. It could be maybe depending on where his line is.
He's got a wetland right here in the corner. I don't know, right in this area right here they had a wetland put in just to try to help feed the groundwater and whatever. And it's dry most of the time. Whoever put it in is, I mean, I guess maybe that's its purpose, but it won't hold water for, anyway. So that's another part of the whole kind of jungle out there. But my only concern is to ground mounted solar panels is the reflection. Is that a problem with them being that low as to traffic or?
I mean, I don't know. I've got them on my roof.
Yeah, I know your
They're
roof.
hot.
I mean, is that something that we would have to take into consideration as far as, is that going to reflect people, you know, coming down the road and maybe cause of traffic?
And that would be the reason to have them in your backyard. That way, far enough away, sure.
Yeah, well, you were talking back and side, and it may be something that's going to be more like a site visit examination.
Yeah, you put it in the zoning resolution that each it's determined on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah,
After a visit from the zoning inspector.
Yeah, I don't think you can just throw it out as just blindly side or back. I think it would have to
I
be.
think that'd be the smart way to do if you want to do it. You're not talking 100 people putting out solar panels, so it's not like it's going to take that long to come out. That way, if the zoning inspector is worried about the placement, they could work back.
Right. And that's my point.
And I think that's very valid.
And this one, I think, also brings up that question. One reason it brings up that question is because property lines are on both roads.
That on the
So
right.
what's a backyard on one side?
Yeah, again, that's why,
Which is the house address, just because the address EV Road, does that mean that's the front yard? Or I mean, it doesn't always mean that. It looks like in this case, in fact, it's.
There is a house here.
Yeah.
yeah. But that's, everything is, but again, I think that ideally, try to get maybe something. The problem is you got to go through the whole process. You've got to approve it. Got to go to the planning commission. They have to approve it. Well, they have to see it. They don't necessarily have to approve it. Then after that, then it goes to the trustees. So it's everything you do. So that's why if you want to do anything else this year, bunch them all together.
I don't know if, of course, we weren't there at the beginning of this process, but I'm curious as to what these, I assume other townships have regulations for the same reason. Is it based on, is it a reflection factor, or is it based on how it looks in terms of aesthetically, aesthetically, it doesn't look great, or
I cannot answer that question.
we have the BZA, I had questions that dealt with, as I recall, with structures that were built in front of the house. There were questions that, because I know the zoning says the structures like a detached garage is not supposed to be in the front of the house or further from the house than the road is. So I could see it might be a good reference point to say, is this, I know it's solar technology is relatively new, compared to barns at least.
Right.
So maybe there's a similar reason for why you don't want that in front of the house on the road. It's probably not considered as, I think in that case, it's got to be aesthetically not fitting the community or something.
So those are all things, great points, all things you guys got to figure out. Again, but that was from, and we'll make a copy, I'll give this to you.
I was thinking that partly because of your long history on the BZA. Do you recall issues like that? Did those kinds of questions come up? As far as what?
No, not really. I mean, it's in the zoning resolution, so if they want something different, they have to go to the BZA to get a variance.
Right.
So it was just, then that's definitely a case by case basis. If you look at the plot plan and say,
Can you remember any of the reasoning behind that? Like, that's what I'm getting at. What was it because it?
I think it's,
later.
I think it's probably mostly aesthetics.
Now that could block the view too, if someone pulling out, there's a barn or close to the road.
Right, yeah, it could be a safety issue. So, I mean, there are rules in there as far as how far it has to be, accessory building has to be side. Probably won't see that.
There's,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Marvin, please.
Well, that's come up in here before, the solar panel, because someone was in here, I don't know, it's been a couple of years ago, and they're all worried about a solar farm and, having it reflect, looking out their window, it's actually on your road, and looking out the window and seeing this giant mirror and whatever. So, I mean, there's a lot to consider when you put something in writing.
I think it's better to have something in writing than nothing.
Oh, no, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that. I mean, there needs to be some zoning law, that's for sure. But I'm just saying that when you say case by case, it certainly has to be that way. Because it could definitely affect, I mean, you wouldn't want to be the guy that it's right in there, you're shining across the road in your face, you know what I mean?
Oh, I agree.
So there's a lot to consider. That's all, that's my opinion.
On solar panels, you fellas, most of you are on Township. Have you gotten notices? I got one personal they'd like to buy or rent a solar panel. And then I got a flyer today in the mail. I did not respond to any of them, not going to other than negative, because I don't want it.
Yeah,
So they want your land,
Yeah,
basically.
Leasing rights too. Purple County's done a lot with that, with farmlands especially, where they wanted to get assurance of having leasing rights to farm fields for future commercial
and there's a
development.
lot of scams out there.
Yeah.
Okay, Farm Bureau's investigating a number of them too. That once they got access to the property, then you lose your rights to it.
Well, there's a whole bunch of issues, how much per acre, how many panels per acre, how much surface area per acre. We could talk about all those types of limits, the size of the largest panel you're allowed to have, putting it on roofs, that's kind of a standard these days, I don't think that's really questioned.
I, as a landowner, look at another aspect. In fact, they, okay, they're only renting it for 20 or 30 years. And at the end of that time, you need to have them put up collateral so that they can clean up the mess.
Oh,
If
yeah.
they don't clean it up.
Yeah, and that's in the law that they have to have, an escrow account. It's gonna be big enough to clean it up.
State law now,
Yeah, now it's,
because that was
one.
when you brought this up about 2 years ago or 3, it was a work in progress. It's, you know, it was on the agenda of the state legislature. So this,
How basically local counties have much more influence on whether commercial solar farms. So,
Yeah.
it's like- I'll bring up one more thing.
well, I guess what I can do is I'll see if I can dig up among other townships in the area and maybe talk with the planning commission, see if they have any thoughts on this.
I don't know. You can go online.
Yeah, I think you said you'd looked and you said there was nothing there, right? Given a quick look, so, yeah.
But if they're as up to date as we are, probably wouldn't.
Yeah, Perry and Clay may have some though. Yeah, so if that'd be okay, I'll look at, see what they've got. And then that'll be at least a starting point for us. Okay, so
Mark had something else. You got?
Oh.
yeah, that was number 2 on our agenda, I think. Are we done with panels, do you think, for the time being? So we talked about the over 1 ton parking, and we've got a specific situation to address.
So-
If you want to review that with us?
So, consider possible changes to Article 38, Section 3803. So Article 38, Section 3803 says, successor use is not permitted in residential, agricultural, business, and office district. None of the following shall be permitted as an accessory use in a residential, agricultural, business, or office district. Overnight parking or outdoor storage of non-farm trucks over 1 ton rated capacity. Buses or mobile homes, semi-trailers, construction trailers, carnival trailers, rides, exhibit trailers, box beds, rail cars, trolley cars, portable or temporary storage units, and any other similar units. So that says basically in any agricultural business or office district, you can't park. However, this was added between the 2006 edition of zoning commission, zoning resolution in 2012 that we have right now. I'm the one. It says overnight parking will be allowed for 1 truck rated over 1 ton owned by the property owner. The truck may not be parked on the property for more than 72 consecutive hours. The truck may not be parked closer than 50 feet to a neighboring property line. So to me, I don't know why that second, if you're gonna ban it, why give that out? And what's happened, this brings up Sugar Street, which is one of the properties you're talking about. So the guy that brought, not where the modular home is being, we're gonna call it modular, so not where the
It's
next,
a common place there, isn't it?
yeah. The next lot next to him,
Yeah, and up the hill,
and up the hill,
Whatever that is.
yeah. So anyway,
same adjacent.
the guy that owns that lot parks his semi truck. It's a real big rig, and he's got a trailer, and I think he hauls like heavy equipment.
I thought that was part of the construction
I
effort.
did too.
So
Parking spot.
to give you a quick synopsis, there was a complaint about that, him parking it there. And the only thing, and this is part, this 3804 is part of the accessory uses. So there was a complaint that he's parking his truck there. And, you could go, well, how, it's prohibited, but when you go to the next part that says they can park it there, they can only park it there for 72 hours at a time. So if they move their truck every 72 hours, and then the lady that was making the complaint said, how do you enforce that? I said, we can't enforce that. You can't have the zoning inspector going by there every day. You can't have the police going by there. So that may be something that we want to get rid of, that Mr. Fortunate.
It may have been an attempt to say that's not an accessory use. I mean, accessory use, because accessory use would suggest that it's going to stay there as an accessory use.
No,
It's saying it's only 72 hours. Maybe it should have been 24
well,
hours.
and we went back and forth. I talked to the owner, I talked to the person making the complaint, I talked to the prosecutor's office in depth. And I even went down to the prosecutor's office to talk with them, and we had Kristen on speakerphone, so we was kind of a teleconference. And basically, they said, because you can't have an accessory use unless you have a principal structure. At this time, there is no structure, there's no house, there's no barn, there's nothing. So it's not a violation because it's not an accessory use.
Why is he parking the rig there if there's no?
Well, he's parking the rig there because he lives up in Round Heights. So he rents up there, so
You
he
gotta
was
kick out
parking,
of there.
he was parking his rig up there, and they said, you can't do this in the city. So he bought this property, to give the history of it, he bought this property back in December of last year of 2021. With the, supposedly went to the zoning office up here, talked to a young person, so it had to be Haley. Haley said it was okay. As it turned out, she was right. I don't think that she had any rationale of why. But so that's why he parks it there. I talked to him and he said, I may be gone a month if I have a big job. So he does park it there. But since now, if he builds a house, that's a whole different deal. Because basically he told me that's why all the digging around there looks kind of like a mess. He supposedly cleared out some of the land on top of the hill there. That's what it's supposed to.
He's made a little terrace up there.
Yeah, kind of like, yeah, that's, but I don't think he's done, I haven't.
So the house, there's not going to be another house up there, because they would.
Yeah, no, that's where he wants to build the house up on top of the hill,
Oh, it will, they don't.
up the hill.
But that, so the modular one that's at the bottom of the hill is going to be moved up there, or is that?
No, that's a different property. That's a whole
That's
different
two,
owner,
that's two lots.
two owners. So in that case, if he builds a house on there, then you could possibly, go after him, because then parking would be prohibited as accessory use. However,
But he could
leave
it there for
72 hours, drive around the block, come and park it again. So again, I don't understand why that was added. That's why I said something, if you're going to prohibit it, just prohibit it. But also you may want to word it such that it's not an accessory use, or you put it in another part of the zoning resolution that says you cannot on a non-farm property. On the farm property, you can do whatever you want. You can have tents on it.
Well, so the other house is a different owner, you're saying?
Different
So
owner.
is he 50 feet away from that neighbor? Because that even says.
When you look at it, when he's parking his rig, he probably is more than 50. And, even from the street. So now there is this is on our street, which we have to investigate. There is a semi on our street that parks right in front of his house. In our street, he's parking on basically part of the road. So that is a violation. That's what we get to once we get to some other stuff. So again, it was very interesting because it came down to accessory use. It's not accessory use because there's no principal structure. So
That'll go away once they have their house.
yeah, once he has a house there, then that all may
So it
change.
needs to be addressed anyway.
Yeah.
Or can it be addressed? Is this considered too late once?
Well, it's,
Being grandfathered in.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. whether-
well, if you would change this right now, throw out that second portion about parking for 72 hours, yeah, he would be grandfathered in. Now, if he builds a house, that changes the whole scenario. So I don't think he would be grandfathered in, because it would be an accessory use. Right now, it's not an accessory use because there's no principal building, there's no house.
So is there any ruling about parking on vacant property that you own?
No, there's
Whatever you want there.
Well, yeah, so maybe, yeah,
Just that duty.
yeah, so it's vacant property. Yeah, there is no, that's not usually gonna bother people, except this is kind of right in town there. Yeah,
Where is this language again?
it's in
On 3803.
3803, so it's section 38 and it's 3803. A is just what says none.
That's what you just read, A. Graph A.
And then A1 is the overnight parking shall be allowed. One truck, it'll fit it over one time. So it just makes no sense why that was really added. It was added with it. So if you guys don't remember,
I don't remember. I do not remember.
I don't think we put that in there.
I don't remember that at all.
I think that was existing.
well, no, you say, because I went back to the 2006 edition, which was the one before the one we've got now. It was that 1A was not in there.
Okay.
And then
You mean A1?
A1, yeah, A1 was not in, but then on the edition we have now, it's
If I was on the zoning back then, but I don't remember anything about that.
anyway from 2006 to 2015, it got put in. Again, it's just, to me, it's poorly worded. And it's unenforceable, so I say 72 hours. Yeah, so that's another questions. So that's something I think, that along with the solar panels, maybe something tackle relatively soon. Can make a difference in this case.
What do you think?
A question.
I got a question, but it's sort of related to all this, but I mean, there's been several dwellings or residents or whatever that have been turned in for violations of whatever. One of them is right over here. Has anything ever, does anything ever get done with those? I mean,
Well, basically, the trustees can handle 3 different violations. Junk cars, which is real hard to handle because you can't have time. The criteria that make it a junk car is sometimes difficult to prove. Unsafe buildings, like a building that's ready to fall down, and like garbage and stuff, high grass or high vegetation. So those are 3. Those are the trustee handle, not the zoning department goes out and investigates them. Trustee is the one that actually brings those up. And the problem with most of those is that if the owner, you give the owner a letter, say this is a violation, you have a junk car in your road. If they don't get it, take care of it, then township has to go in and pay to have that car removed. And for the most part, I don't think there's ever been a whole lot of support township spending that money. So,
Why were those 3 picked, I mean, why wouldn't there be things, I thought I heard Haley talk at one point about notifying people who had trees that were going to fall road or something like that. Is there something, what's the difference between unsafe buildings and other unsafe structures or structure?
I think it has to be a structure. I mean, I have to go back to see, because those are specific.
Okay, we'll see.
See.
Okay.
So,
So Marvin's original question,
so nothing gets done.
Well, that when you're talking about, the one example you're talking about fits under a couple of these things.
We did find a few things where she had possibly sent out a letter, but it might be a better time now to have people send in a complaint that actually follow.
yeah, the
Like Kristen
problem
could
is
actually follow it better.
even this Sugar Street case, I told the lady to print out a complaint form from the website, fill it out, and send it to me. She never did because we don't have anything in paper. Going back and forth, emails doesn't. So we did have a case that barn on Mill Road. Built the barn on Don Mill Road. He was parking his Germantown Oil. He was parking his trucks there. It was really a pretty dangerous thing. So there was several complaints made on paper because I talked to Jeff Montero, who was up there.
came here to a
Yeah, he came here to a meeting. Yeah, so
trustees meeting.
trustees.
Yeah.
So, as it turned out, I don't think they're parking trucks. I think it was such an hassle so far from Joe. So it kind of took care of itself.
It looks as though they've expanded that marathon station or whatever
Yeah, I don't know.
back there,
The whole chicken now.
what's that?
They have a stand that sells, what kind of chicken?
Urban chicken.
Urban chicken. Like a little behind there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of the parking, the trucks.
Where the
they
trucks.
cleared all that
I
back.
don't think that's John Legate's property though.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good, it's sold a little bit.
So that's not Germantown Oil or
I
what?
don't think so.
Okay.
It's been numerous packs at one point. But that's city limits, isn't it?
So right up to that.
It's that.
Township starts a little further up though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the first property is not. Had some cases on that.
Yeah, so I don't, as far as violations. Zoning inspector could get into that. It's usually simple, so. High grass is usually pretty simple, send a letter and.
Part of this, Ben, that we didn't really have a working zoning official person, so that's what we're the trustees, isn't there some part with the zoning?
Yeah, the zoning inspector kind of starts the
And then
process.
it goes,
And it goes
they
to
enforce it.
along the person doesn't. So. Inspector says it.
There's a person that you mentioned, they have to fill out the complaint. Is that, do they then become an official part of that complaint against that person?
They don't have to sign it. I know there's just, it can be anonymous. Sure. That's quite, the questions always come up. I think we talked about it. Do you make it complaint driven, only complaint driven, or do you go out?
Enforce it.
Well, do you go out, zoning inspector goes out and finds things? I said, if you look hard enough, you're probably gonna find something in every property in this generation. Easily, so. That's something that, that really doesn't so much zoning.
Okay.
I have a question. As far as the resolution and having to change it to from a PDF to a Word or whatever, is there a way that you could make it a searchable doc? So that if it's,
That was Dan's idea.
Yeah,
Well, it can be done. It's sort of the same. Once you have it online, anything's searchable. Just do a Control C, Control F, and you can find anything you want in almost any web page.
we can do that now, even with the way that
It's
it's on.
It's on, unless it's not an actual editable document. If it's, in other words, if it's saved as like an image file, you're not going to pick up that kind of thing on an image file. And
The
some,
PDF.
but PDF would be.
Yeah.
Anything, almost anything online would be, but some people might actually put, like, if they take a photo of some kind of contract, then put it on there, you can search it, because it's an image file, it's not an actual editable file.
JPEG can't be searched, but a PDF.
and it's in the form of a PDF now.
So if our, that's why I said before on, I don't know if people know that, but it's, our resolutions are online, they're searchable. Use your regular search commands in your computer.
Once we get it up to date, it'll be better.
Yeah.
All those changes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
I'm done, you guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
any other new business? I'm gonna suggest the possibility that we have a meeting in August. Because there's some of this stuff, otherwise we only have one more meeting this year to get anything done. So I was gonna suggest maybe the first Tuesday in August. If Mark finds there's no other conflict here in this room with the township.
We'll check the
And
calendar.
if I can't get the work done in time, on some of the stuff we've been talking about, if I can't get it done, then won't have the meeting, but I'm
Second or August 9th?
August 2nd. Could have it tonight, but
I'm fair with
The first Tuesday,
tonight,
first Tuesday, you say in August?
yeah, that'd be the second.
Second. Yes.
That clear as far as you know?
I mean, election day, so probably.
There's your chance, Mark. Say, no, it requires you taking minutes.
Nothing on this calendar, which is sort of the official
The master
meeting
calendar.
room calendar.
You say that's election day?
It's primary election day.
Okay.
The second
Oh,
one.
that's,
It is, that's right.
yeah,
But we don't, but our district doesn't have a primary. Do they have a primary election day?
Sorry.
Does German Township?
Well, we will all be voting on state representative and central committee members that day. I'm not even going to vote because in my precinct, there's nothing. Everybody running is running unopposed. It's like, why bother to go and vote? It is a primary election. The state's going to spend millions of dollars.
That really probably won't affect your meeting.
I wouldn't think
It's not
so,
like they're gonna have a voting machine.
because they don't use this for voting.
You were suggesting about keeping up with the maps, and you're not talking about like lot splits and all that kind of stuff. You're just
No.
talking about
just the zoning classifications, and then when we make a change, make sure it gets on the map, you know? And those guys at Montgomery County will do that for us. As far as I know, there's no changes, or no charges, excuse me. And like, if we send, let's say we make changes to the zoning resolution that we're talking about here tonight, we have to send those in, and then they will determine the charges that they're gonna, render to the township here to make those recordings in the township. You know, we can't make that approval. The township or the trustees do all of it. They have to approve that.
My understanding, the only charge is if we get a hard copy. Not aware that.
Is that right?
It's my understanding.
Hmm.
Haley talked a couple of years ago, shortly after I came here as fiscal officer, about wanting to get a new map. It was fairly expensive. But I guess that was reflecting hopefully the changes that you mentioned earlier.
We could actually just note them on our own map. Like physical changes to that map. What you're talking about?
I think they'll do that for us.
Yeah, I'm talking about on our existing map without having to pay for a new map.
I believe they'll charge us.
But
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Just for a
Well,
new
no,
map.
I was talking about the zoning resolution, and then I think you thought we were still talking about maps. It's two different departments down there.
I thought you were talking about that.
Me too.
I did too, right?
The zoning resolution, yeah, I assume they just take whatever you send. I don't know whether there's a charge.
Well, there is a charge. You have to change it there.
The zoning resolution, there is. The maps, I don't think so.
But to get a hard copy for the wall, there is. That's what Haley told us.
He sent me a great big map,
Okay,
no charge. He says, I'll send you the biggest map you want.
I'm relying
You can
on what
fill
Haley
that
told
wall.
the trustees a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he says I could fill that wall with one and there's no charge.
Only one for each of the zoning commission members.
Yeah.
We want our own map.
How big do you want it?
Pay for my house with it.
So,
Decide on a date yet?
yeah, would it be okay? August 2nd as a tentative date?
I'd have to do what he just did and look at the refrigerator calendar.
Same one I'm gonna have to look at.
Yeah.
Okay. Could we at least approve a tentative date if we
I
don't
think
have
we can go.
if we don't have a quorum or whatever? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve a date for a special meeting on August 2nd?
You're saying it, all seconded.
Hear that?
So I've got some homework to do. We'll see how it shakes out.
Check the refrigerator. Can you approve the motion?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any other new business?
If no other new business, I move we adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll second it. Brett says second.
All in favor?
Just making copies of the stuff that I went over with Kurt, so I have to stick around for a couple.
Thank you.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
I do.
Good point.
I just got a shoulder.
One with a pitchfork and one.
I won't ask it, I don't have it. That's not like a good.
I need to find this one, I don't know mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't,
To do a couple things.
is that a real thing that the recorder's office, they don't have any received zoning resolution changes?
His desk making us copy.
Oh,
Is there an amendment to that?
the director of that office told me that. director did. And then Mark called and spoke with one of
We have.
the